You're listening to Those Other Girl Clips. Roll them.
Melanie, do you have like a brief summary of like what the bill says?
Yeah, so this law is very different from other heartbeat laws that have been tried to go into effect in other states because the way how it's enforced is not by the government, but it's by the citizens. So it's really inspiring and empowering because in a way it's kind of like saying like, hey, the government isn't protecting preborn, so we will. So it's not that like the way how the law is enforced is by a civil lawsuit. So a citizen would have to know or find out that a woman obtained an abortion, and then that abortionist and anyone who assisted with the procurement of that abortion is eligible to be sued under the law after a preborn human has a heartbeat. So that's how it's enforced. That's how it's different from other heartbeat bills that have failed, because this is enforced by the citizens. And another thing is that I really wanted to break down some common myths.
Yes,
One being that the woman can be sued. So that is just flat out not true. That's nowhere in the law. And that was never a thing prior to Roe v. Wade. So it's not a thing now. It's never been a thing for the woman herself to be punished. So again, the abortionist and anyone who assisted, meaning like it could be the Uber/Lyft driver. By the way, don't support Lyft anymore because they're saying that they will cover any legal fees if one of their employees were to be sued. So
wait, pause for a second. So they really you could sue the Lyft driver. Is that something that we think is actually going to happen? So I feel like that's such hyperbole. I don't know.
I know. Yeah. So ideally, people would follow the law. I was actually in a documentary with Vice News yesterday, and this was a question that the pro-abortion reporter was asking of like, will you sue? Are you going to sue? Do you plan on suing? And my response really was, well, ideally people aren't going to break the law. I don't want to have to sue if people are going to abide by the law, Isn't that kind of like counteractive? Like, I should have to sue because nobody should ideally be breaking the law. But of course, if we see injustice happening, for example, of your neighbor's house is being broken into, or you see somebody beating someone up, when we see injustice happening, I would hope people are brave enough to say something about it. And so the same thing, if we had confirmation of an abortionist still performing abortions after the preborn human's detectable heartbeat via ultrasound, then I hope that I, along with any pro-lifer, would be brave enough to call out the injustice. So that's how I would relate it.
I have a question.
Okay.
If someone, well, no, I guess they wouldn't. Okay, never mind. I was going to ask if someone is robbing a bank and they take, this is not funny, but it is.
Hello.
They take a Lyft to rob the bank. Could they prosecute the Lyft driver? But the difference would be, obviously,
they would be an accomplice. They would be an accomplice.
But what if the Lyft driver didn't know? Well, I guess that, and they would prosecute the people that do know, that are purposely.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm just,
and that's another thing is that like today makes the law 1 week old at the time that we're recording this. So, and that's another thing I told the reporter last night is that this is new to everyone.
Yeah.
So everyone is still learning how is this going to affect real life?
Yeah.
What is actually suing going to look like?
Yeah.
But ideally an abortionist is not is not going to perform an abortion after a detectable preborn human's heartbeat because I believe they can get a fine of up to $10,000, I think.
Wow.
Or maybe I'm misunderstanding that, and it's the person who reports it can receive $10,000. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Let me see if it's on here. I feel as if it's probably they will just be fined.
Yeah, but it's like hefty fees.
Yeah, which I'm all for. 100% prosecute them, fine them, lock them up. Maybe not lock them up right away, but lock them up eventually.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The thing I have doesn't say who receives it, but that's good to know. Okay, so
yeah.
Next myth you were going to say.
Yeah. So another myth going around is that perpetrators through sexual violence can sue. For example, if the person they're abusing becomes pregnant, that they can sue and say, like, no, I don't want you to have this abortion, which under the law is also not true. And I have it pulled up in front of me so I can literally read what it says. So it says, notwithstanding any other law, a civil action under this section may not be brought by a person who impregnated the abortion patient through an act of rape, sexual assault, incest, or any other act prohibited by sections penal code. So literally says it in the law. And so I think it's just misinformation, disbelief, people who just haven't taken the time to find out the truth.
Well, what it is, and I'll tell you what it is. What it is people, like you said, it's been out for a week. People are on high emotion, high alert. Yeah. People are very upset. People are scared. People are thinking of the absolute worst thing. So anybody that shares anything about this law, whether it sounds like hyperbole, whether it's a flat out lie, people are just going to share it and share it and share it and then share it again. Most people are not doing their research because I'll admit last week I didn't think the whole Lyft driver thing was real. And I'm pretty sure I said, no, it wasn't real, but I can retract that. I guess it is real. But people have not read it and they are not educating themselves. And what does that tell you about, for myself, for example? I like that you read it out loud, so I know that part. And then not just me, but everyone else listening too. Like, maybe we should all take a glance at it if we're going to have educated conversations about it. But yes, thank you. Those are two that have really been making the rounds, and they've been making the rounds because those, yes.
Okay, so I found the part that talks about the $10,000.
Perfect.
So let me read it. If a claimant prevails in an action brought under this section, the court shall award injunctive relief sufficient to prevent the defendant from violating this subchapter, or engaging in acts that aid or abet violations of this subchapter, statutory damages in an amount of not less than $10,000 for each abortion that the defendant performed or induced in violation of this subchapter, and for each abortion performed or induced in violation of this subchapter that the defendant aided or abetted, and costs and attorney fees. So it sounds like for each abortion, that abortionist has to pay $10,000 plus attorney fees.
So to the person who brings it up against them?
No, like the abortionist. Oh, who would they award that $10,000 to?
I couldn't really tell.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
either way, an abortionist, it's like, cost and demand. Like an abortion costs like what? A few $100s. Like, I don't know.
You gotta pay this $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's not worth, it wouldn't be worth it for an abortionist to continue performing after a detectable heartbeat and, you know, and then have to deal with the minimum $10,000 fees.
Yeah, minimum. So it could be more than that.
Yeah. And I also, I think another common myth, and I know I said this earlier, was that about the woman herself being sued. And so I also have it here in the law.
Perfect. Yes. This is what we need. This is what we need. So everyone listen, like this is from
but
the
again,
law.
like you have to understand, like, this is a lot of legal jargon that's like, I feel like for the average, you know, Joe Blow, it's hard to understand.
And that's okay, but at least we have it being read, and if they need to re-listen to that, rewind it, ask someone to break it down, at least we have it, because I think something that's really big and important is for us to always be mindful of facts and truth. I think that's very important. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So here is section talking about that the woman herself can't be sued. Okay, so starts off, this subchapter does not create or recognize a right to abortion before a fetal heartbeat is detected. This subchapter may not be construed to authorize the initiation of a cause of action against or the prosecution of a woman on whom an abortion is performed or induced or attempted to be performed or induced in violation of this subchapter. So again, I think the main thing is the initiation of a cause of action against or the prosecution of a woman on whom an abortion is performed or induced, that is not allowed.
Yeah. That's what I got out of it, I think.
So those are like the main things I wanted to share, is that no, perpetrators through sexual violence do not have a right to sue, and the woman herself cannot be sued. And I feel like there was a third thing I brought up.
The woman herself. Oh, and the lift thing. No, yeah, the lift thing we talked. The $10,000. We confirmed it is $10,000.
Yeah.
So another thing I kind of wanted us, well, actually, first I want to say, so studentsforlife.org has the top 8 myths about the new Texas abortion law. Oh, I didn't tell you that. Awkward. They have a blog post, and I'm going to link it for everybody, and I'll also share it on, like, I'll try to put it everywhere, any place of the podcast. But yeah, this is really she kind of covered a lot of the things. One thing I did want to cover, there's 2 things I wanted to cover on the list, but before we do that, it kind of like transitions into, I do want to talk a little bit about the heartbeat part. Yeah. I think we should discuss like our feelings about that.
Yeah. So, well, I wanted to add too that, like, so Roe v. Wade made it so that abortion is legal in all 50 states. So technically, abortion is not illegal in Texas. It's only illegal after a detectable preborn human's heartbeat. So, because some people say, like, it's a complete ban on abortion.
Yeah. We're in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. And technically, it's not. So, but that would be up to women knowing their bodies, tracking their fertility.
Which they don't.
Which they don't, exactly. Because most women who get abortions are on some type of contraception, meaning they're not learning their cycles and they're masking their natural hormones. So they're really not knowing when they're ovulating. I mean, the way how a woman becomes pregnant on contraception is by breakthrough ovulation, meaning like an accidental ovulation, like the egg gets through, because the way how contraception works, hormonal contraception, is by masking ovulation, by making it so that she doesn't ovulate and making the body think that she already ovulated, which is how they can have as much sex as they want and not become pregnant. But then it's those exact girls on the hormonal contraception who are having the unplanned pregnancies and wanting abortion. So I think it is possible for women who do track their cycles, who are aware of their fertility, to know when they're pregnant super early on. Like, it is very possible. I don't, yeah. So like, that's why I'm just trying to stress, like, it's like Roe v. Wade is still in effect over the state of Texas. You know.
And I also want to say, so to your point, the morning toast, Vic has me listening to that now, and one of the girls is pregnant, and she does the temperature thing.
Okay, cool.
She knew right away. She knew
exactly.
I think it was, she said it was like after 2 days, she knew, something like that. So if you are tracking, which that's another thing, this podcast is anti-birth control, 100%. And if you're tracking, then you'll know how your body, you'll know your body. And we will talk about that. I keep saying that, and everybody hold me accountable to it. If you see me in the street, make sure you say that. I really want a professional to come on here and discuss it, and like, not have a class, but I'd love to even do a Zoom where you can talk to a professional. That can maybe be a Patreon thing once we get our Patreon up and running. But I do want to do that because everything I've learned has pretty much been from Melanie. And then like, I've listened to 2 podcasts, and I'm finishing up reading a book. But like, I didn't learn any of the stuff in school. You don't just learn this random, you learn it randomly. You learn it from friends who are really into it, and you learn it from maybe listening to a podcast. So we really want this podcast to be one of your resources. So my opinions about the heartbeat. If you believe that life begins at conception, so anytime from conception, when egg meets sperm, anytime from that to heartbeat can be detected about 6 weeks average.
Yeah, so the heartbeat actually begins around 18 to 21 days old. But then it's detectable earliest about 6 weeks via ultrasound. So, which is why if you pay attention to the abortion language, they're not calling the Texas heartbeat law by its name. They're calling it SB 8. They're not calling it abortions, a ban on abortions after a preborn human fetal heartbeat. They're saying a ban after 6 weeks. Like, they're not using the same language because they don't want people to think about the heartbeat. They don't want people to acknowledge the life in the womb. So they're just calling it SB8 and 6-week ban on abortions.
And that is a very, very good point. And I wanted to say that, like, so there is still a chance for preborn babies to be, okay, that is super bright. I don't know.
I just told Alexa to turn the lights on.
Okay.
Look, we're adjusting.
Okay. But yeah, like, that still leaves a window for preborn babies to be murdered in the womb. So this is the heartbeat bill is great. It is a huge win. I mean, huge. But it is not a complete abolition. And I know that we both are for abolition of abortion completely. So I think that's just something to like be made aware of, because I know I have a few friends that were like not necessarily happy about the bill, because here's a negative. We have to rely on people reporting heartbeats. We have to rely on Planned Parenthoods being honest. I mean, that does cause some, there are a few pieces where, okay, how are we going to implement this? But I do think the fact that this is in law is a huge step. And I think we definitely should celebrate. I honestly think we should celebrate any type of legislation. And because it's a step in the right direction. We can't do it all in one night. No matter what anybody tells you. If we could, we would have. That's it. That's the other thing too. If it was possible to do it all in one night, we would have. But I do want to just note, because I'm pretty sure we have some people who are against incrementalism listening, I do want to note that there is a portion where a preborn baby could be murdered. But that's for right now. Who knows in the next couple of months? Well, maybe not months. Could be. You know what? I'm not going to put anything past God. Who knows what's going to happen next? It's still a really good, a good step. I just wanted to acknowledge
a phrase I've been hearing from pro-life community in Texas is that this is a baby step in the right direction.
Yes.
And it truly is. This is a huge victory. And we have confirmation based off of like Planned Parenthood's emails, their own social media talking about, even people, calling to ask, I think I'm this far along. What are your abortion services? Confirming that they're not currently performing abortions. And as I said, today makes it about a week old, and I've seen different numbers showing that it's been saving about 150 lives a day. So let's see, 150 times 7 days, that's over 1,000 lives saved in this 1 week. So
good.
Like, this is amazing. So like, I don't know, like, there's holes, there's flaws and things. And like I said earlier, like, everyone's learning like how to live this out, how this is actually like real life being implemented. But like, let's just say, I don't know, like, who cares about the things that are flaws when we know about 1,000 lives have been saved so far?
I was gonna say, like
I'm not really pressed. Like, I'm like, this is a celebratory time.
And that's just it being 1 week. And we're going to, if you're pro-life, like, one life is what matters. Like, okay, we got one. Yeah. Not only we got 1 times 1,050. I mean, that's amazing. I think that's I was really encouraged. I was super happy.
I remember crying when I cried. I found out that I think I found out the day that the governor signed it into law while I was in Uganda. So I was in a different time zone.
Yeah.
And Jerry called me and I just started crying over the phone. Just,
Yeah.
It's such a surreal time to be a pro-life activist in Texas right now. Like, this almost feels like a dream come true.
I was gonna say, I can't. North Carolina, pray for us. But I can't imagine how great it feels. Like, all right, we did something. Like, this followed through.
Yeah.
We got our foot in the door. And honestly, like, Texas has paved the way for so many other countries. I mean, well, countries, but let me stop. Texas
Freudian
is not its own country. Texas is not its own country. It's paved the way for so many other states in the country. So I can't even imagine how great it feels. And then also too, to know that like your state is a safe haven, almost, pretty much. And I mean, we have friends that are activists, and they sometimes share Planned Parenthood stuff to like to know with the enemy or whatever. And
opposition research.
And I saw a post saying like they're legitimately concerned. And I feel like that also too gives me like, not hope, but like that makes me know that this isn't just one of those little like, there's been a lot of bills that have gone through that have kind of just been like, oh, here you go, pro-lifers, please be quiet. But the fact that Planned Parenthood is so concerned, they're legitimately afraid, that gives me like so much hope. That makes me think like, okay, this is definitely something serious. Like, we have done a step. And I'm saying I don't live in Texas, but I do think like everybody that is in the pro-life movement, this was all of us together. Because like I said, like, illegal and unthinkable, whatever you're doing in the pro-life movement, however small, posting occasionally, talking to your friends about it, that is helping make it unthinkable. That is changing the culture. The culture is like what we're focusing on, laws and the culture. We really need to just do our part in educating and talking about it in the culture.
Yeah. And I really wanted to like go off of your point earlier of it doesn't protect all of preborn humans, like preborn humans who don't have a heartbeat, or that in between phase of they have a heartbeat, but it's not detectable like by an ultrasound. That, yes, like that is, you know, still the reality and possibility, and it's sad. But I think too, like, we want to do, ideally, whatever is going, like, the best strategies for the most amount of success. There was a bill throughout this past legislative session called the Texas Abolition Strategy that didn't make it to become law. And the way how the abolition strategy worked is like, after so many, like every like 2 years, like it was like a 3-part bill. In that bill, that a new thing would go into effect every like 2 years, I think is how it was written up. So the first thing that would immediately go into effect is that it would end all discriminatory abortions based off of sex, disability, race. And then I think after 2 years, it would make it so that abortions would be illegal after a preborn human's heartbeat. And then another 2 years, make it a complete abolishment of abortion. And so that was something that didn't go through. And I believe this heartbeat bill was also something in the last legislative session, because Texas, we have our legislative session every 2 years. So 2 years ago, it was something that tried to go through, didn't make it. And so, but it went through this time. And the Texas Abolition Strategy didn't go through this time. Maybe it'll make it through, you know, in 2023. Like, that's definitely possible. Like, it wasn't too long ago. I don't know how many years ago, before this heartbeat law, abortions are legal and were legal. I can say past tense now. Wow. We're legal in Texas up to 20 weeks, when we know a preborn human can feel pain. So it was so interesting, like how people think, oh, Texas is so pro-life and conservative, when preborn humans could be killed up to that point. So I'm just sharing this because it takes time, you know, it takes changing that culture. Like that 20-week law from, I think it was 24 weeks prior to that, that was a step, and it took time. But now we're at the preborn human's detectable heartbeat. And again, it may take time, but then finally a complete abolition is possible. But I'm just sharing this because, like, that is what we want, you know, to make it illegal. But it's going to take time to also make it unthinkable. And like how you have stressed, Mallory, the two go hand in hand. So like 2 years ago, the heartbeat law didn't go through. Probably Texas wasn't ready for that. I mean, people can say, oh, we're not ready right now. I mean, it's obviously we've grown since then. We've prepared for this time. So yeah, I'm just sharing to say, like, I hear that and I echo it, because I want that too. I want all preborn humans to be protected. It naturally takes time for like efforts to be successful, you know, to work with the legislative process. So another bill that also went through last week, it passed through both. It made it through the House, already went through the Senate. So now it just needs to go to the governor's desk. And I know he's gladly going to sign it if he hasn't already. But it's gone under the radar because obviously it's not as headliner news as recent events. But a bill was passed for more regulations on chemical abortions. So since now surgical abortions are not going to be happening in Texas, that means possibly if a woman finds out she's pregnant before 6 weeks, there's going to be a rise of chemical abortions. But the bill that went through makes it so that a woman has to see her provider prior to getting these abortion pills, and she has to have a post checkup after the chemical abortion pills. So it's really just safety regulations But again, things that the abortion industry doesn't want, because it makes their job more difficult, puts an inconvenience on them, but it helps potentially to save a life if a woman has to go to see the doctor and not just through video chat or just order online. So that's something that was also passed to hopefully protect more of those preborn lives in between that life and, you know, detectable heartbeat that Texas did do. That, you know, that is another win that obviously, like I said, isn't as like headliner news.
I think that is really, 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 really good. I did not know that. And I'm really glad that you know that and you can talk about that, because I do think I think we need to put things in perspective and be honest with ourselves on what needs to be done. The reality is, as I've said 1,000 times, it is not a popular belief. It is not a fun, cutesy belief to be pro-life. So it takes time to get the things done it takes time to get the things done legally and culturally. Is that Manolo?
This is another dog named Mia.
That's Mia. Oh, she wanted to be with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it takes time for all of these things to happen. And I really do like how there was this other thing that's in between. Like, and if we just keep doing, like, throwing things at, honestly, I think we should just keep throwing things at the wall, trying to figure out what it is to get it all done. And I think that also takes creativity, that takes time, that takes energy, that takes all of us doing our part. You can always be doing something. I just really want to reiterate that, because I know sometimes it really does feel overwhelming, it was overwhelming, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to fix things, but you can always be doing.
Thank you for listening. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on this video. Also, please make sure you share with all of your friends. Lastly, if you want to hear the rest of this episode, it is available now on YouTube, as well as Rumble, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thanks. Bye.